What if everything we thought we knew about ancient cities was just the tip of the iceberg, hidden beneath layers of dust, tucked away in forgotten archives, or even buried beneath modern streets lie architectural blueprints so revolutionary they force us to rewrite history itself. These aren't just sketches or rough drafts, they're master plans, meticulously drawn by the greatest minds of their time, revealing secrets about civilizations we thought we understood. From the towering grandeur of Rome to the mystical precision of Machu Picchu, these lost blueprints are like time capsules, waiting to shatter our assumptions and show us the truth about how these ancient worlds really functioned. Picture this, a single parchment, unearthed after centuries, detailing an irrigation system in Babylon so advanced it rivals modern engineering, or a stone tablet from Egypt showing a temple layout that aligns with constellations we didn't think they could track. These discoveries aren't just fascinating, they're game changers. They prove that ancient architects weren't just building structures, they were crafting entire ecosystems of thought, blending art, science, and spirituality in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. And here's the thing, every time one of these blueprints resurfaces, it sparks fiery debates among historians, architects, and even philosophers. Because when you peel back the layers, you realize these designs aren't just about bricks and mortar. They're about power, ambition, and the sheer human drive to create something timeless. That's exactly what we're exploring today. 25 of these lost architectural blueprints, each one a key to unlocking a new understanding of the past. Some were hiding in plain sight, misunderstood for generations. Others were stumbled upon by sheer luck, like puzzle pieces waiting to snap into place. Together, they paint a picture of ancient cities that's far more complex, far more ingenious than any textbook could capture. So if you've ever wondered how the Romans built roads that lasted millennia, or how the Maya engineered cities in harmony with the stars, you're about to get answers, and trust me, they're more thrilling than you'd expect. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a journey into the minds of the past, and by the end, you'll never look at these ancient wonders the same way again. The lost grid of Mohenjo-Daro isn't just an ancient city, it's a masterpiece of urban planning that would put many modern metropolises to shame. Imagine streets laid out in perfect right angles, houses built with standardized bricks, and a drainage system so sophisticated it could rival today's infrastructure. For decades, historians assumed this level of organization was the result of slow, organic growth. But recently discovered fragments of clay tablets tell a different story. These delicate artifacts, etched with precise lines and measurements, suggest something revolutionary. Mohenjo-Daro wasn't just built, it was designed. Every alley, every well, every bathhouse was part of a grand blueprint, orchestrated by a central authority with an almost futuristic vision. What's truly astonishing is how they tackled one of civilization's oldest enemies, water. The Indus Valley was prone to devastating floods, yet Mohenjo-Daro's planners didn't just build near the river, they engineered their city to work with it. The blueprints reveal a network of channels and reservoirs that diverted floodwaters away from homes, while carefully placed wells ensured clean drinking water year-round. Even the bricks themselves tell a story, each one baked to the same exact size, a testament to a society that valued precision long before the invention of the ruler. But here's the mystery that keeps archaeologists up at night. How did they pull this off without the tools we take for granted? No laser levels, no satellite surveys, just human ingenuity and an intimate understanding of their environment. Some researchers think the answer lies in the stars, that the city's alignment mirrors celestial patterns, turning the entire grid into a kind of astronomical clock. Others argue it was pure mathematics, with planners using ropes and pegs to calculate perfect angles. Whatever their methods, one thing's clear: these weren't just builders. They were pioneers crafting an urban vision so ahead of its time, we're only now beginning to decode its secrets, and that's what makes this blueprint so extraordinary. It's not just a relic, it's a challenge, a reminder that ancient civilizations didn't just stumble their way to greatness, they thought their way there. Every line on those clay tablets forces us to rethink what we know about innovation, about collaboration, about what humans are capable of when they dare to plan for the ages. Rome's aqueducts have always been celebrated as marvels of engineering, but beneath their towering arches lies a secret even more extraordinary than their beauty, a hidden system of modular design that made them nearly indestructible. For centuries, historians assumed these structures were built as singular, permanent monuments, but a set of recently uncovered parchments, buried in the archives of an Italian monastery, tells a completely different story. These fragile documents, covered in precise diagrams and annotations, reveal something revolutionary. The aqueducts were designed like ancient Lego sets, with standardized, interchangeable parts that could be swapped out in hours, not days. Think about what this means. While modern cities struggle with crumbling infrastructure, Roman engineers had already cracked the code for rapid repairs over 2,000 years ago. The blueprints show a meticulous catalog of stone blocks, pipes, and even mortar mixtures, each labeled with exact measurements so any damaged section could be replaced without halting the water supply. But the genius doesn't stop there. These documents also include contingency plans, alternative routes, and backup reservoirs designed to keep water flowing during sieges or natural disasters. It wasn't just about building for the present, it was about ensuring the city could survive the unpredictable. What's truly fascinating is how these discoveries rewrite our understanding of Roman innovation. We've long praised their ambition, but these blueprints prove their brilliance lay in the details. Take the so-called spare parts depots scattered along the aqueduct routes. Archaeologists once thought these were simple storage rooms, but the parchments reveal they were strategically stocked hubs, placed exactly where calculations predicted wear and tear would be worst. And here's the kicker: some of these depots even held training manuals, instructions carved into clay tablets so new engineers could learn the system without disrupting operations. This raises a tantalizing question: what else did the Romans know that we've yet to rediscover? Because if they could plan for earthquakes and invasions with this level of foresight, what other groundbreaking concepts might still be hiding in forgotten scrolls or buried beneath modern Rome? The aqueduct blueprints aren't just relics, they're a masterclass in sustainable engineering, a reminder that the past might just hold the blueprints for our future. Babylon's most famous ziggurat, the Etemenanke, has long been celebrated as the biblical Tower of Babel, a symbol of human ambition reaching for the heavens. But what if the ruins we see today are just a shadow of what was originally planned? A cracked clay tablet discovered in the basement of a Berlin museum holds the answer. Covered in meticulous cuneiform script and precise geometric diagrams, this forgotten blueprint reveals a design so audacious, it would have dwarfed every other structure in ancient Mesopotamia. The tablet shows a ziggurat not just taller, but radically different from the one that stands in ruins today. Spiral staircases wind around its exterior, leading to platforms that could have served as open-air observatories. Hidden chambers branch off from the main stairwells, their purpose left unexplained. Were they sacred spaces for rituals, or perhaps storage for astronomical instruments. The most haunting detail isn't what's on the tablet, but what's missing. Whole sections of the blueprint are left incomplete, as if the scribe abruptly set down their stylus. Historians now believe this matches the timeline of Babylon's sudden political collapse. Just as construction reached its most ambitious phase, resources were diverted to wars and rebellions. The workforce vanished and the grand vision was quietly scaled back. You can see the evidence in the ruins themselves, lower layers built with precision, while upper levels use smaller, hastily placed bricks. It's as if the builders knew their dream was slipping away. What's truly staggering is what this unfinished project says about Babylonian society. This wasn't just a temple, it was a statement. The spiral staircases suggest public access, challenging the idea that ziggurats were exclusively for priests. The hidden chambers align with descriptions of star tablets used by Babylonian astronomers, hinting at a building that doubled as a scientific instrument. And then there's the sheer scale. The blueprint's proportions imply a structure that would have cast its shadow across the entire city, a constant reminder of the king's connection to the gods. So why does this matter today? Because this crumbling tablet is more than an architectural relic. It's a snapshot of a civilization at its peak, frozen in the moment before its fall. Every erased line, every abandoned feature whispers the same question: how much grander could Babylon have been if history had taken a different turn? The answer lies in the dust of that unfinished ziggurat, waiting for us to piece it together. Deep beneath the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, archaeologists uncovered a slab of volcanic rock that would rewrite everything we thought about this ancient metropolis. At first glance, it appeared to be a simple city plan until someone noticed the faint second layer of markings beneath the surface. When digitally enhanced, the truth became undeniable. This wasn't one blueprint, but two. Perfectly aligned, mirroring each other down to the last detail, the designs revealed a city built not just for the living, but for the dead. Every avenue, every plaza, even the smallest residential compound had its twin in the afterlife. This wasn't mere symmetry, it was a spiritual masterplan. The builders of Teotihuacan didn't just believe in an underworld, they engineered their entire city as a bridge between realms. The main thoroughfare, the Avenue of the Dead, was more than a ceremonial path. It was a cosmic axis with identical versions stretching into both worlds. Even more startling, the Dead blueprint included structures absent in the living city, shadowy pyramids and courtyards that may have represented waiting places for souls. Modern laser scans of the actual ruins now confirm eerie anomalies, hollow spaces beneath temples that match these phantom buildings exactly. What's truly revolutionary is how this duality played out in daily life. Residential compounds had dual water channels, one for fresh water, the other symbolically carrying offerings to the departed. Murals found on site depict figures split down the middle, half in vibrant color, half in monochrome, as if the artists were reinforcing this constant dialogue between worlds. Even the city's famous obsidian workshops may have had a hidden purpose. The volcanic glass was considered a physical manifestation of the boundary between life and death. This discovery forces us to reconsider other ancient sites. Could Egypt's double temples or Cambodia's mirrored reservoirs be more than artistic choices? Teotihuacan's blueprint suggests ancient architects weren't just designing spaces, they were weaving cosmology into stone. Every aligned gateway, every reflecting pool might have been a deliberate nod to realms beyond our own. And that's the real revelation here. When we study these cities, we're not just looking at ruins. We're reading a language of belief, written in streets and walls, waiting centuries for someone to decipher its deepest truths. For centuries, historians dismissed ancient accounts of Carthage's legendary circular harbour as exaggerated tales until a storm off the Tunisian coast unearthed the truth. Beneath the waves, sonar revealed the unmistakable outline of a massive artificial basin, its concentric rings matching descriptions from long-lost maritime maps. These weren't just sketches, they were technical blueprints detailing a harbour so advanced it could rotate its inner docks like a giant mechanical puzzle, aligning hundreds of warships for rapid deployment. The scale was staggering, enough to shelter Carthage's entire fleet from storms and spies, all while hiding its true numbers from enemies. What makes this discovery so groundbreaking isn't just the harbour's existence, it's the engineering behind it. The blueprints show a system of counterweighted platforms and sluice gates that used tidal forces to turn the docks, a feat of hydrodynamics we'd struggle to replicate even with modern machinery. But here's the real mystery. Why did Rome, a civilization known for borrowing enemy innovations, fail to preserve this technology after Carthage's destruction? The answer might lie in the harbour's final moments. Charred fragments of the original plans, found in a Roman general's journal, suggest the complex was sabotaged during the city's fall, its mechanisms dismantled or sunk to prevent rivals from copying them. Yet the most tantalizing clue comes from an unexpected source: the harbour's orientation. Unlike typical ports facing open water, Carthage's design pointed inward toward the city's temple district. Recent excavations reveal why the harbour wasn't just a military asset. Its rotating docks doubled as a celestial calendar, with key alignments marking solstices and eclipses. This wasn't merely a place to park ships, it was a sacred machine, blending warfare and worship in a way that challenges everything we thought we knew about Phoenician ingenuity. So what happened to this marvel? The sea might hold the final piece of the puzzle. Divers have uncovered strange gear-like artifacts near the harbour's ruins, bronze mechanisms too precise for their time. Some bear Carthaginian symbols, others Roman numerals, hinting at a desperate attempt to reverse engineer the technology before it was lost forever. These fragments whisper a sobering truth: sometimes history's greatest innovations don't fade away. They're erased, leaving only blueprints to remind us how much brilliance can vanish in the ashes of war. The legend of the Minotaur's labyrinth has captivated imaginations for millennia, but what if the truth was even more extraordinary than the myth? A fragment of a fresco, painstakingly reassembled from shards found in the ruins of Knossos, reveals a blueprint so complex it makes the famous maze seem like a child's sketch. This isn't just a winding path to a monster's lair. It's a multi-level architectural marvel, with courtyards stacked like layers of a cake, interconnected staircases that double back on themselves, and chambers marked with symbols suggesting they were used for sacred rituals. The scale is staggering. This labyrinth didn't just house a mythical beast, it may have been the beating heart of an entire civilization. What's truly revolutionary about this discovery is how it blurs the line between story and reality. Ancient texts describe the labyrinth as a place of terror, but the fresco paints a different picture. Delicate lines depict gardens suspended above walkways, light wells designed to cast dramatic shadows at specific times of day, and even what appear to be acoustic chambers, spaces where sound would echo in haunting patterns. This wasn't just a prison for the Minotaur, it was a carefully engineered stage for ceremonies that blended spectacle with spirituality. Archaeologists now believe the labyrinth's infamous twists and turns served a dual purpose: disorienting visitors to create a sense of awe, while guiding initiates through a carefully choreographed journey of revelation. But here's the twist that's rewriting history. The blueprint includes sections labeled in a script older than Linear B, the the writing system of later Minoans, hinting that the labyrinth's design predates even the earliest myths about it. Some researchers speculate these markings could be a kind of architectural Rosetta Stone, a bridge between the Minoans and an even older culture lost to time. And then there's the matter of the so-called Minotaur's chamber. The fresco doesn't show a monster at the center, but a vast, circular space lined with altars and benches, suggesting it may have been a gathering place for hundreds. Was the Minotaur a metaphor for something else entirely? A ritual, a natural disaster? The truth might lie in the labyrinth's most puzzling feature, a network of channels that seem designed to carry liquids, water, wine, or perhaps something more mysterious. This changes everything we thought we knew about Knossos. The labyrinth wasn't just a setting for myth, it was a living, breathing machine for shaping human experience. Every corridor, every hidden room was a deliberate choice, a way to manipulate movement, emotion, and belief. And that's the real revelation here. Ancient architects didn't just build structures. They crafted psychological journeys, using stone and paint to tell stories that would endure long after their civilizations crumbled. The Minotaur might be fiction, but the power of the labyrinth, that's as real as the stones beneath our feet. The floating gardens of Tenochtitlan weren't just a feat of agriculture. They were a breathtaking symphony of engineering and ecology, a city literally rooted in the water that sustained it. Aztec manuscripts, long overlooked as mere historical records, contain meticulous diagrams of these artificial islands called chinampas, revealing a system so efficient it could feed hundreds of thousands while floating on a lake. The blueprints show grids of rectangular plots, each one anchored to the lakebed with woven reeds and trees, their sides reinforced with precisely stacked mud and vegetation. But what's truly remarkable isn't just their construction, it's how they functioned as a closed-loop ecosystem. Narrow canals between the plots weren't just for transport, they acted as aquatic highways for nutrients, with fish waste fertilizing crops and the crops, in turn, filtering the water. It was a self-sustaining cycle perfected centuries before modern permaculture. Modern engineers examining these designs are stunned by their foresight. The irrigation channels, for example, weren't just ditches, they were calibrated to exploit seasonal water levels, using gravity to distribute moisture evenly without pumps or pipes. And the crops themselves were arranged in layers, with maize stalks shading tender squash vines below, while beans climbed both, fixing nitrogen into the soil. This wasn't farming, it was a masterclass in spatial efficiency, yielding harvests up to 7 times more productive than traditional methods. Even the construction materials were revolutionary. The Aztecs used a porous volcanic rock called tezontl to stabilize the islands, a substance so lightweight it prevented sinking while allowing roots to breathe. But here's the twist that's capturing global attention. These blueprints might hold solutions for today's climate challenges. Cities like Bangkok and Venice, threatened by rising waters, are experimenting with Chinampa-inspired districts, floating neighborhoods that adapt rather than resist their environments. Meanwhile, urban farms from Mexico City to Singapore are adopting the Aztec layering technique to maximize limited space. It's a stark reminder that ancient ingenuity wasn't just about survival, it was about harmony. Tenochtitlan's gardeners didn't conquer nature. They danced with it, crafting a metropolis where every element, from the tiniest canal to the grandest temple, played a part in a living, breathing system. What's haunting is how much was nearly lost. After the Spanish conquest, the gardens were drained, their blueprints dismissed as primitive curiosities. Only now, as we face the consequences of industrial agriculture and urban sprawl, are we beginning to grasp the sophistication of what was destroyed. Those manuscripts aren't just relics, they're a mirror, reflecting a future where cities might once again float, not as a last resort, but as a testament to human creativity. The Aztecs didn't just build gardens, they built a philosophy, one that whispers across the centuries. The most advanced civilizations aren't those that force the world to bend, but those that learn to grow with it. For over 3,000 years, the story of Dwarka was dismissed as mere mythology, a golden city swallowed by the ocean as punishment for its pride. Then, marine archaeologists made a discovery that would turn legend into fact. Off the coast of modern-day Gujarat, sonar images revealed the outline of massive stone walls, perfectly aligned streets, and what appear to be the remnants of a grand harbor. But the real revelation came when divers recovered a series of inscribed copper plates from the seabed. These weren't just random artifacts, they were blueprints etched with meticulous precision, detailing a coastal fortress engineered to withstand the very waters that eventually claimed it. The designs show a city built with an almost prophetic understanding of the sea's power. Enormous wave breakers constructed from interlocking stone blocks formed a defensive perimeter against storms. Intricate tidal gates, some with moving parts still preserved in the silt-regulated water, flow through canals, preventing flooding while allowing ships to pass. Most astonishing of all, the entire metropolis was laid out in concentric circles, with the innermost districts elevated on artificial mounds, a last line of defense against rising tides. This wasn't just urban planning, it was an act of defiance, a civilization staring down the ocean and daring to build something permanent. Modern engineers studying these blueprints have uncovered something even more remarkable. Dwarka's architects may have anticipated their city's fate. The copper plates include annotations warning of the Great Drowning, with instructions for reinforcing certain structures against the anger of the sea. Were these added after disasters, or did the builders genuinely predict their own downfall? The answer might lie in the ruins themselves. Sections of the outer walls show signs of repeated repair, as if each generation fought a losing battle against the waves. Yet at the city's heart, the grandest temples stand remarkably intact, their foundations engineered with a secret mixture of molten limestone and crushed seashells, a primitive concrete that hardened rather than eroded in salt water. What does this mean for us today? Dwarka's story isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a masterclass in adaptation. As sea levels rise, modern cities from Miami to Mumbai are facing the same relentless enemy. Some are already turning to ancient solutions like Venice's revival of movable flood barriers, a concept eerily similar to Dwarka's tidal gates. Others are studying the city's concentric design, realizing that retreating inward rather than fighting the water line by line might be the key to survival. But perhaps the most haunting lesson is this: Dwarka's people didn't vanish without a trace. The blueprints include evacuation routes, markers for inland settlements, even instructions for salvaging sacred artifacts. They knew their time was limited, yet they kept building, kept innovating until the very end. That's the real legacy of these sunken plans, not just a city lost to the sea, but a testament to human resilience, a reminder that even in the face of the inevitable, we never stop trying to leave our mark on the world. The rose-red cliffs of Petra have always dazzled visitors with their grandeur, but beneath those iconic facades lies an even greater marvel, a labyrinth of tunnels so ingenious it turned one of the world's harshest deserts into a thriving metropolis. Recently deciphered scrolls, discovered tucked into a crevice near the treasury, unveil blueprints for a hidden hydraulic network that would put modern engineers to shame. These weren't just secret passages for royalty to flee invaders. They were the lifeblood of the city, a sprawling underground web of channels, cisterns, and pressure-controlled sluices that harvested every precious drop of rainwater and morning dew. The Nabateans didn't just survive the desert, they mastered it, using nothing but gravity and stone. What's astonishing isn't just the scale of the system, but its precision. The scrolls detail how artisans carved channels with a slight downward tilt just 1 degree to ensure water flowed silently toward reservoirs without eroding the rock. They mapped seasonal flash floods, redirecting destructive torrents into tranquil pools. Even the famous Petra's dramatic entrance gorge was no accident of nature. The blueprints show it was subtly reshaped to act as a giant funnel, capturing runoff from distant mountains and channeling it straight to the city's heart. And here's the stroke of genius. They lined these tunnels with a special plaster mixed with crushed ceramics, a primitive but effective filter that kept water clean for months. But the real mystery lies in what the scrolls don't explain. Certain chambers are marked with symbols resembling celestial patterns, while others branch off abruptly into dead ends. Some archaeologists believe these weren't failures, they were deliberate, part of a larger system still undiscovered. Thermal imaging has revealed hollow spaces behind Petra's most famous monuments, suggesting entire sub-cities might lie waiting. Could the treasury's ornate facade hide more than tombs? The blueprints hint at vertical shafts plunging hundreds of feet, possibly connecting to natural aquifers deep below. This changes how we see Petra's decline. Historians long assumed it fell when trade routes shifted, but the scrolls tell a darker tale. Meticulous notes describe earthquakes destabilizing critical tunnels, causing entire districts to lose water access. The Nabateans didn't abandon their city, they watched it wither 1 blocked channel at a time. Yet even in collapse, their legacy endures. Modern cities in arid regions, from Marrakech to Phoenix, are now reviving these ancient techniques, proving that the best solutions sometimes come not from reinventing the wheel, but from rediscovering it. Petra's blueprints are more than engineering marvels. They're a testament to human adaptability, a reminder that even in the face of impossible odds, creativity can carve rivers from stone. And with 85% of the city still unexcavated, who knows what other secrets might flow from those rose-red cliffs when the next scroll surfaces. Angkor Wat's towering spires have long been admired for their beauty, but a fragile palm leaf manuscript, preserved in the vaults of Cambodia's National Museum, reveals a secret far grander than stone and mortar. This delicate blueprint, inked in meticulous detail, shows the entire temple complex wasn't just a place of worship, it was a colossal astronomical instrument, engineered to track the heavens with jaw-dropping precision. The document maps hidden observatories buried beneath courtyards, their narrow slits aligned to capture specific stars on key dates. It charts corridors that double as solstice markers, where sunlight pierces shadowed halls at exact angles, painting golden pathways on the stone. But the most startling revelation, a series of underground chambers, their walls etched with star maps so accurate they could have predicted eclipses centuries in advance. How did the Khmer architects pull this off without telescopes or modern mathematics? The answer lies in the blueprint's margins, tiny annotations describing a method of celestial observation so simple, it's brilliant. Monks would pour water into polished bronze basins, creating mirrors that reflected the night sky. By charting the movement of stars across these liquid surfaces over decades, they compiled data so precise, it allowed them to sync Angkor Wat's architecture with cosmic cycles. The temple's famous westward orientation, long considered odd for a Hindu monument, suddenly makes sense. It aligns with the setting sun during equinoxes, transforming the entire complex into a sundial the size of a city. Yet the manuscript hints at something even more profound. certain passages describe the breath of the gods, a term researchers now believe refers to atmospheric refraction, the bending of light that makes stars appear to twinkle. The Khmer didn't just observe the sky, they accounted for its distortions, adjusting their measurements in ways modern astronomers only began doing with computer models. This level of sophistication raises a tantalizing question. Were they collaborating with distant cultures? The blueprint includes symbols matching Mayan, eclipse tables, and references to star walkers from across the seas. Could Angkor Wat have been part of a global network of ancient observatories, sharing knowledge across continents? What's truly humbling is how this discovery reshapes our view of Angkor's collapse. Historians once blamed environmental overuse, but the manuscript tells a different story, one of celestial disruption. Notes scribbled in later years describe failed predictions, stars out of step with temple alignments. Recent studies confirm a possible culprit, a series of massive solar storms around the 13th century, distorting Earth's magnetic field and throwing off astronomical calculations. The Khmer's brilliance became their undoing. Their perfect machine fell silent when the cosmos itself refused to cooperate. Today, as light pollution drowns our view of the stars, Angkor Wat's blueprints whisper a warning and an invitation. They remind us that the sky once wasn't just a spectacle. It was a clock, a compass, a sacred text written in constellations. And perhaps, if we look closely enough at those ancient palm leaf lines, we might rediscover not just lost knowledge, but our own place in the universe. The stone ruins of Great Zimbabwe have puzzled explorers for centuries, but a set of clay tablets hidden in a nearby cave tells a story no one expected. These fragile artifacts, etched with precise geometric patterns, reveal a cityscape utterly different from the crumbling walls we see today, a skyline dominated by soaring conical towers, connected by graceful elevated walkways that arced between them like stone bridges. Historians once dismissed early Portuguese accounts of these structures as wild exaggerations, but the blueprints prove otherwise. This wasn't just a settlement, it was a deliberate masterpiece, designed to unify a fractured region under a single architectural vision. What's striking about these designs isn't just their ambition, it's their symbolism. Each tower was positioned to align with distant tribal territories, visible for miles across the savannah. At dawn, their shadows stretched like pointing fingers toward far-off villages, while at night, fires lit atop them would have pulsed against the darkness. The blueprints label these structures as speakers of stone, suggesting they weren't just landmarks but communicators, broadcasting messages of cohesion across a vast and diverse landscape. The walkways, meanwhile, weren't mere thoroughfares. Carvings on the tablets show figures processing along them in ceremonial robes, hinting at rituals where leaders from scattered communities met midway, literally bridging their differences. Yet the most haunting question isn't how they built these marvels, it's why they vanished. The last intact tablet offers a clue, a hastily scribbled note about the coming of the quiet, followed by meticulous instructions for dismantling the towers block by block. Some archaeologists believe this references a civil conflict where the very symbols meant to unite became targets. Others point to environmental evidence, a prolonged drought that may have forced the city to repurpose its stones for irrigation. But the most compelling theory lies in the ruins themselves. The towers weren't just destroyed, they were rearranged, their stones carefully incorporated into the walls of smaller, more defensive structures. It's as if the people of Great Zimbabwe chose to sacrifice their skyline to protect their survival. Today, these blueprints challenge our assumptions about African urbanism. The walkway's precise curvature, achieved without mortar or modern tools, rivals Roman engineering. The tower's alignment with solstice sunrises suggests astronomical knowledge that predates European contact. And the very act of dismantling them systematic, reverent speaks to a society that valued adaptability as much as grandeur. Perhaps that's the real lesson of these vanished towers. Greatness isn't just about what we build, but what we're willing to transform when the world changes around us. The stones of Great Zimbabwe didn't disappear. They were rewritten like a language shifting to tell a new story, one we're only now beginning to understand. Deep in the heart of ancient Anatolia, the Hittite capital of Hattusa held a secret that turned speech into something almost magical. A royal palace where whispers could travel farther than shouts. Recently deciphered clay tablets, etched with precise diagrams and cuneiform instructions, reveal an architectural marvel, throne rooms engineered to bend sound itself. The blueprints show walls curved like cupped hands, ceilings layered with hidden resonance chambers, and corridors shaped to carry even the softest words with crystal clarity. This wasn't just design, it was psychological theater, a way to make power feel supernatural. Imagine a visiting diplomat convinced their private mutterings to an aide were inaudible, only to have the king respond from across the hall as if standing beside them. The genius lay in the details. Certain chambers were lined with a mixture of lime and crushed quartz, creating surfaces that reflected sound waves with near-perfect precision. Narrow ventilation shafts, previously mistaken for simple air ducts, actually served as acoustic channels, funneling conversations straight to listening posts manned by royal spies. But the real masterpiece was the throne room's parabolic floor, a shallow depression disguised beneath patterned tiles that focused sound waves upward, making the ruler's voice seem to emanate from the walls themselves. What's truly fascinating is how these sonic tricks shaped history. The tablets describe ceremonies where priests used the echoing halls to simulate the voices of gods, their chants amplified to bone-rattling volumes by the architecture. During tense negotiations, envoys from rival kingdoms would find their own words thrown back at them from unexpected angles, a disorienting tactic that likely secured the Hittites more favorable treaties. Even justice was served with acoustic precision. Accused criminals reportedly broke down when their whispered confessions, meant for the judge's ear alone, boomed across the courtroom. Yet the blueprints hint at darker applications. One tablet mentions a chamber of truth, where prisoners were placed in a precisely measured spot that amplified their pulse and breathing, turning involuntary bodily sounds into audible evidence of guilt or fear. Another references a network of listening tubes that snaked through the palace walls, allowing the royal family to monitor every corner of their domain without being seen. This wasn't just engineering, it was early surveillance state technology, a reminder that control isn't always about force. Sometimes it's about who hears what and when. Today, as modern concert halls strive for perfect acoustics, Hattusa's blueprints offer a humbling lesson. The Hittites achieved feats of sound manipulation without oscilloscopes or computers, using nothing but geometry and observed physics. Their echoing halls weren't just clever tricks, they were tools of statecraft, proof that architecture isn't just about space. It's about controlling how we experience the world within those spaces, right down to the very words we think we're sharing in private. And that's a power as potent now as it was 3,000 years ago. Beneath the marble steps of Ephesus's legendary Library of Celsus, archaeologists made a discovery that rewrites the history of performance itself. A labyrinth of underground theaters so advanced they make modern stagecraft look like child's play. The blueprints, carefully preserved on papyrus scrolls sealed in lead tubes, depict a multi-level complex where stages rotated on hidden pivots, trapdoors snapped open with flawless timing, and entire sets could be swapped in seconds using an intricate system of counterweights. But this wasn't just spectacle for spectacle's sake. Every mechanism served a deeper purpose, to blur the line between myth and reality, transporting audiences into the heart of ancient stories with a level of immersion we'd associate with virtual reality today. The genius of these designs lies in their simplicity. The rotating stages, for example, weren't powered by some lost technology. They relied on teams of stagehands turning massive capstans beneath the floor, synchronized by cues from musicians in the rafters. Trapdoors weren't random surprises. They were carefully mapped to align with dramatic beats, ensuring a god's sudden appearance would coincide with a crescendo of flutes and drums. Even the acoustics were engineered to perfection. Curved walls channeled whispers to the farthest corners, while domed ceilings amplified certain frequencies to create eerie, otherworldly echoes. This wasn't just theater, it was sensory alchemy. What truly staggers historians, though, is how these blueprints challenge our assumptions about ancient entertainment. The scrolls describe performances that fused drama with what we'd now call magic actors, flying on hidden wires, pools of water appearing and vanishing beneath the stage, even early pyrotechnics using powdered metals to mimic lightning. But here's the twist: these illusions weren't mere tricks. They were sacred tools meant to bridge the human and divine. Stage directions scribbled in the margins speak of rituals where the lead actor, portraying a deity, would emerge from a trapdoor precisely as sunlight struck a mirrored ceiling panel, bathing them in unearthly radiance. The audience didn't just watch a play, they experienced epiphany. Yet the most haunting revelation lies in the blueprint's unfinished sections. Rough sketches show mechanisms for simulating earthquakes and tidal waves, suggesting productions grander than anything previously imagined. Were these abandoned due to cost, technical limitations, or did the Ephesians, like their modern counterparts, push spectacle to the brink of disaster? The answer might lie in the ruins themselves. Subtle cracks in the theater's foundations hint at a catastrophic failure, perhaps the very reason these scrolls were sealed away. Today, as holograms and augmented reality redefine live performance, Ephesus's lost theaters offer a humbling lesson. Those ancient stagehands understood something we often forget: technology isn't the star. It's the invisible hand that makes the impossible feel inevitable, the magic trick that convinces us just for a moment to believe in gods and monsters. The real masterpiece wasn't the rotating stage. It was the collective gasp of an audience united in wonder, proving that the right illusion can outlast empires. The folded bridges of Anuradhapura weren't just feats of engineering, they were masterpieces of deception. Ancient Sri Lankan palm leaf manuscripts, their edges brittle with age, describe structures so fluid they could vanish before an invader's eyes. Unlike the rigid stone arches of Rome or the hanging vines of Mesoamerica, these bridges operated like giant wooden puzzles. Interlocking beams, secured with iron pins, allowed entire sections to collapse inward or fan outward at a moment's notice. Imagine an approaching army, confident in their path only to watch as the very ground beneath them retreated, leaving them stranded on the wrong side of the moat. What makes these designs truly revolutionary isn't just their mobility, it's their precision. The manuscripts include meticulous diagrams showing counterweight systems hidden beneath the waterline, allowing a single operator to trigger the bridge's transformation with a lever. But here's the twist: these weren't just defensive tools. The same bridges could unfold into sprawling marketplaces during peacetime, their planks locking into platforms wide enough for merchant stalls. This duality of purpose challenges everything we assume about ancient infrastructure. We tend to think of the past as static, but Anuradhapura's architects saw bridges as living things, adapting to the rhythm of daily life and the chaos of war. The real mystery lies in the materials. The blueprints specify a rare alloy, a mix of local iron and imported metals, that resisted rust while remaining flexible. Recent excavations near the old city gates uncovered fragments of this very alloy, their composition matching descriptions in the texts. But here's what's puzzling. The manuscripts mention fire-walking tests, where the metal was heated and cooled repeatedly to achieve the perfect balance of strength and pliability. This suggests a level of metallurgical knowledge we didn't think existed in the region until centuries later. Could this technology have traveled? Strikingly similar designs appear in scattered accounts from medieval Armenia to the Khmer Empire, though no physical evidence survives. Some historians speculate that Sri Lankan engineers, renowned as master builders, might have shared their secrets along trade routes. Others argue it's a case of parallel innovation, that cultures facing similar threats arrived at eerily comparable solutions. What's undeniable is how these folded bridges force us to rethink ancient ingenuity. They weren't just building for permanence, they were crafting for unpredictability, creating structures as dynamic as the societies they served. And that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in standing firm, but in knowing when and how to fold. Among the sun-bleached ruins of Palmyra, a shattered clay tablet holds clues to a celestial secret temples where the heavens didn't just inspire worship, but literally moved the architecture. These fragmentary blueprints, etched with precise concentric circles and angular notations, reveal domes engineered to rotate, their interiors studded with metal inlays that mirrored constellations. The priests of Palmyra didn't just study the stars, they built machines to dance with them. What makes these designs so extraordinary is their precision. The blueprints specify grooves filled with polished mercury, a liquid mirror that reflected starlight onto altars below, turning rituals into live celestial maps. Calculations scribbled in the margins show how the dome's rotation speeds matched planetary orbits, ensuring that the Pleiades or Orion would align with sacred chambers on specific festival nights. This wasn't just symbolism, it was sacred mechanics, a fusion of astronomy and architecture so advanced, it challenges our assumptions about ancient technological limits. Modern engineers examining the schematics have noted something startling. The proposed bearing mechanisms, using a combination of basalt rollers and bronze sockets, could have reduced friction to near modern standards. Yet the true genius lies in what these domes didn't do. Unlike stationary observatories, Palmyra's temples adjusted for atmospheric refraction, the bending of starlight through Earth's atmosphere. Tiny adjustments in the blueprints account for this distortion, meaning priests could track stars even when they appeared to be in slightly the wrong position. This level of understanding predates European astronomy by over a millennium. But here's the haunting question: who taught them? The annotations reference sky wisdom from the swallowed cities, hinting at lost civilizations whose knowledge may have traveled the Silk Road. The tragedy, of course, is how much was lost. When Palmyra fell, its libraries burned for weeks, long enough, historians note, to erase not just books but an entire scientific tradition. Those surviving fragments suggest the domes were more than ritual spaces. They were calculators, predicting eclipses and planetary conjunctions with a sophistication we're only now reconstructing. Today, as archaeologists painstakingly reassemble the tablet's pieces, they're uncovering something profound. Ancient science wasn't separate from spirituality. It was its language, written not in equations, but in rotating domes and mercury rivers, a testament to human curiosity reaching for the cosmos, one precise, celestial gear at a time. Beneath the streets of ancient Alexandria, where scholars once walked among the greatest library the world had ever known, lies another marvel, one that remained hidden for centuries. The catacombs, long dismissed as mere burial chambers, were actually something far more extraordinary. Rediscovered blueprints etched onto thin sheets of copper unveil a sprawling underground city complete with lecture halls, scriptoriums for copying texts, and even workshops where artisans crafted everything from precision instruments to delicate glassware. This wasn't just a necropolis, it was a thriving, multi-level society operating in the shadows of the surface world. What's truly baffling is the scale. The blueprints map out districts connected by wide, lamp-lit passageways, with ventilation shafts cleverly disguised as decorative columns on the surface. One chamber, labeled the Gathering Place of the Unseen, appears to have been a lecture hall large enough for hundreds, its walls lined with niches for oil lamps to illuminate readings. Another shows a complex water system, cisterns fed by hidden aqueducts that tapped into the same networks supplying the famous library above. But the most intriguing detail: symbols marking certain tunnels as paths of the learned, suggesting this subterranean world wasn't just for the dead. It was a sanctuary for thinkers, a place where knowledge could be preserved away from the chaos of the streets. Why dig down instead of building up? The answer might lie in Alexandria's volatile politics. Surface neighborhoods frequently erupted in riots between Greek, Egyptian, and Jewish factions, while fires, like the one that famously damaged the library, could erase centuries of work in hours. Underground, texts and teachings were safe from both flames and factionalism. There's also evidence the catacombs served as a climate-controlled refuge during the sweltering summer months, with airflow patterns in the blueprints designed to funnel cool desert night air through the chambers. Yet the most tantalizing clue comes from a marginal note on one brittle sheet. When the light above blinds the wise work below, was this a metaphor or a literal strategy? Recent excavations have uncovered inkwells, wax tablets, and even star charts in chambers far from any burial sites. It seems Alexandria's scholars didn't just store knowledge in their legendary library, they duplicated it beneath their feet, creating a backup of civilization itself. The implications are staggering. While we've long mourned the loss of the library's scrolls, these blueprints hint that copies, or at least their essence, might have survived underground long after the surface burned. Perhaps the real tragedy isn't how much was lost, but how close we've been to finding it all along. Every time a tourist walks unknowingly over those buried lecture halls, they're treading on what might still be the greatest cache of ancient knowledge yet to be unearthed. The catacombs weren't just a city of the dead. They were a fail-safe for the living, a reminder that when humans fear the fragility of their world, they don't just build monuments, they bury treasures. The throne rooms of Persepolis weren't just static monuments to power, they were shape-shifting marvels designed to transform at a moment's notice. Recently translated Persian parchments, their edges frayed but their ink still vivid, reveal a secret hidden in plain sight. Entire sections of the royal palace were engineered to fold, collapse, and reconfigure like an intricate wooden puzzle. Walls mounted on bronze hinges could swing inward to create intimate council chambers or outward to form grand reception halls capable of hosting thousands. Ceilings, supported by a lattice of collapsible beams, could be raised or lowered to alter acoustics, turning whispered diplomacy into booming proclamations with the pull of a hidden lever. This wasn't just architecture, it was performance art on a monumental scale, a physical manifestation of Persia's ability to adapt without ever losing its majesty. What's astonishing isn't just the engineering, it's the symbolism. Every foldable element served a dual purpose. A wall that retracted to reveal a garden at dawn might later conceal a military briefing behind its panels by noon. The same space that hosted a lavish banquet could, within hours, become a sealed courtroom for private judgments. The blueprints even include annotations describing how certain configurations were reserved for specific rituals, one layout for welcoming foreign envoys, another for mourning fallen heroes, each transformation choreographed to reflect the empire's shifting needs. This fluidity challenges our modern obsession with permanence. The Persians didn't just build for eternity, they built for the moment, trusting that true grandeur lay in versatility. Yet the real mystery isn't how they built these ephemeral wonders, it's how they remembered them. Unlike stone pyramids or marble temples, collapsible structures leave little trace. The answer lies in the parchments themselves. Meticulous scribes documented not just measurements, but the exact sequences for disassembly, as if anticipating future generations might need to reconstruct their logic. Some sheets even include miniature paintings of ceremonies in progress, capturing how spaces morphed mid-event, a king's throne pivoting to face a new petitioner, or silk curtains unfurling to divide a hall for simultaneous negotiations. These weren't just instructions, they were time capsules, preserving the experience of spaces designed to vanish. Modern architects are only now catching up to the ingenuity behind these designs. The same principles, modular walls, multi-use spaces, define today's most innovative buildings, from disaster relief shelters to pop-up theaters. But Persepolis offers a humbling lesson. Flexibility doesn't mean fragility. Those throne rooms weathered invasions and upheavals precisely because they could change. The walls that folded were also the ones that endured, a reminder that sometimes the best way to leave a mark isn't by standing rigid, but by knowing when to bend. Deep in the emerald heart of the Guatemalan jungle, the ruins of Tikal hold a secret that turns stone into song. Recently deciphered Mayan glyphs, carved into the walls of long-forgotten reservoirs, reveal blueprints for something far more extraordinary than water storage, ancient sound chambers designed to carry human voices straight to the gods. These weren't just wells, they were sacred megaphones, their funnel-shaped shafts engineered to amplify rain prayers with eerie precision. The designs show precisely angled limestone channels that could transform a whispered plea into a thunderous echo, bouncing off the smooth walls before shooting skyward like an invisible offering. What's astonishing isn't just the acoustics, it's the intention behind them. The glyphs describe rituals where priests would stand at the very edge of these reservoirs, their chants amplified as they echoed down into the water below. The ripples, according to Mayan belief, carried those sound waves even farther, creating a bridge between Earth and the rain god Chok. Modern audio tests in these spaces confirm something spine-tingling. Certain tones resonate at frequencies that make the water's surface visibly vibrate, as if the very liquid is responding to the sound. It's a marriage of physics and faith so seamless, it blurs the line between engineering and enchantment, but the real revelation lies in the well's placement. They weren't scattered randomly, each one was positioned at precise astronomical alignments, corresponding to dates when drought was most likely. During the summer solstice, when the sun stood directly overhead, the shafts acted like giant stone trumpets, projecting voices upward at the exact moment sunlight illuminated the water's depth. The effect would have been dazzling, light refracting through the mist of spoken prayers, creating rainbows in midair. This wasn't just ceremony, it was celestial choreography, a way to sync human need with cosmic cycles. Yet the most haunting question remains: how many of these acoustic wonders still lie buried beneath the jungle? LiDAR scans have revealed dozens of unexcavated reservoirs across Tikal's sprawl, their layouts matching the glyph descriptions. Some even appear to connect via underground channels, suggesting a citywide network of sacred sound. Imagine standing in the plaza at dusk, surrounded by dozens of these whispering wells, each one humming with the collective hopes of a civilization praying for survival. The stones of Tikal didn't just hold water, they held voices trapped in time, waiting for someone to lean close enough to hear their echoes. And that's the true magic of these blueprints. They remind us that for the Maya, architecture wasn't just about shaping space. It was about bending sound itself into a ladder to the divine. Göbekli Tepe's towering stone pillars have always been an enigma, but recently uncovered carvings hidden beneath layers of sediment reveal something even more astonishing: deliberate markings that correspond to Earth's invisible magnetic fields. These aren't random scratches, they're precise diagrams etched into the bedrock, mapping out geomagnetic anomalies with an accuracy that defies explanation. The pillars themselves, arranged in concentric circles, align perfectly with these fluctuations, as if the entire site were a colossal compass rose carved into the earth 12,000 years ago. How could a civilization predating metal tools, let alone scientific instruments, have detected forces we only began measuring with modern technology? The answer might lie in the stones themselves. Certain pillars contain concentrated veins of magnetite, a naturally magnetic mineral that would have reacted subtly to Earth's shifting poles. Ancient artisans could have noticed how these stones vibrated or warmed when positioned in specific alignments, turning them into prehistoric sensors. The blueprints, if we can call them that, show symbols resembling swirling patterns, possibly representing magnetic currents or even early attempts to chart celestial movements. One recurring motif depicts a serpentine line intersecting with concentric rings, eerily reminiscent of how modern scientists visualize magnetic field lines. This wasn't just art, it was a language of forces unseen. What's truly baffling is the scale of their ambition. Göbekli Tepe's layout suggests its builders didn't just observe these forces, they harnessed them. Central pillars positioned at points where magnetic readings peak bear carvings of animals with their heads tilted upward, as if frozen mid-ritual. Researchers now speculate these weren't mere decorations but instructions, marking moments when the site's alignment with Earth's magnetism was strongest. During certain celestial events, like solstices or meteor showers, the entire complex may have functioned as a kind of spiritual amplifier, channeling geomagnetic energy into ceremonies. Imagine standing in that space, feeling the very ground hum beneath your feet as the stones amplified forces you couldn't see but instinctively understood. Yet the most tantalizing clue comes from outside the temple. Recent soil analysis shows magnetic irregularities radiating outward in deliberate patterns, as if the site were the epicenter of a larger, invisible design. Some researchers propose Göbekli Tepe was part of a network, with similar structures acting as nodes in a prehistoric power grid tied to Earth's magnetism. Could this explain why the site was deliberately buried millennia later, not to hide it, but to preserve its function, like shutting down a machine too advanced for its time? The implications are staggering. If these blueprints prove intentional, they rewrite not just the history of architecture, but of human cognition itself. Long before we mastered agriculture or built cities, we may have been whispering to the planet's magnetic pulse, using stone as our translator. Göbekli Tepe's pillars don't just challenge our timeline of innovation, they suggest an entire lost chapter where science and spirituality were one and the same, written in the language of Earth's invisible forces. And somewhere beneath those ancient carvings, there might still be clues waiting to pull us deeper into the mystery. The floating temples of Nan Madol rise from the Pacific like a mirage, an entire city of basalt palaces and sacred altars balanced precariously atop a labyrinth of artificial islands. What makes these ruins truly extraordinary isn't just their isolation, but the recently discovered palm frond blueprints detailing how they defied physics itself. These fragile documents, preserved in the oral traditions of Micronesian navigators, reveal a system of counterweighted platforms and buoyant foundations that allowed massive stone temples to float with the tides rather than fight against them. Imagine slabs of volcanic rock weighing as much as 50 tons, carefully positioned on woven mats of mangrove roots and coral rubble, engineered to rise and fall with the swell of the ocean like celestial rafts. The genius lies in the details. The blueprints specify exact ratios of porous coral to dense stone, creating foundations that absorb just enough water to remain stable during storms, but not so much that they'd sink. Channels between the islets weren't just for canoes, they acted as pressure valves, redirecting currents to prevent erosion. Even the megaliths themselves were shaped with precision, their edges slightly concave to reduce drag when the tide surged. This wasn't just architecture, it was a dialogue with the ocean, a testament to builders who understood the sea's rhythms intimately enough to dance atop its surface. But the real mystery isn't how they floated these temples, it's how they got the stones there. Nan Madol's nearest basalt quarry lies miles across open water with no evidence of large vessels. The blueprints hold a clue. Sketches of outrigger rafts lashed together in temporary configurations, capable of carrying single megaliths at a glacial pace. Oral histories describe teams of navigators waiting for specific lunar tides, when currents would assist rather than resist their passage. Some slabs even bear notches that match rope marks in the quarry, suggesting they were towed like oceanic sleds. The risk would have been staggering. One miscalculation and an entire season's labor could vanish into the depths. What's haunting is how these blueprints reflect a worldview. Where other cultures built pyramids to reach the heavens, Nan Madol's architects crafted temples that embraced the ocean's impermanence. Altars were designed to flood during king tides, a reminder of the sea's power. Walkways curved intentionally to slow visitors' steps, forcing reverence. Even the city's name whispers its purpose. Nan Madol translates to the spaces between, a poetic nod to the liminal world it occupied, neither fully land nor water. Modern engineers are only now grasping the sophistication of these designs. The same principles, flexible foundations, dynamic load distribution underpin today's floating cities in places like the Maldives, where rising seas threaten survival. Nan Madol's builders anticipated this balance 12 centuries ago, crafting a city that didn't conquer nature but coexisted with it. Their blueprints aren't just relics, they're a challenge, written in coral and basalt, asking us whether our own structures will sink or float when the tides of change come rushing in. The orderly streets of Harappa have long been celebrated as proof of an unusually fair society, until a cracked clay tablet, unearthed near what was once the city's edge, shattered that illusion. Covered in precise grids and annotations, this forgotten blueprint exposes a district where the sun itself was rationed. Rows of tightly packed homes, their doorways aligned to cast perpetual shadows on neighboring walls, stand in stark contrast to the wide, sun-drenched courtyards of the elite quarters just blocks away. This wasn't accidental urban planning, it was deliberate design, a way to encode social hierarchy into the very angle of sunlight that reached a family's threshold. What's chilling about this discovery isn't just the segregation, it's the sophistication behind it. The tablet's measurements show how builders calculated the sun's arc across seasons, ensuring shaded areas remained constant even as winter gave way to summer. Narrow alleyways funneled hot winds toward these cramped dwellings, while the elite enjoyed breezy, north-facing colonnades. Even the bricks tell a story. Those in the shaded district were smaller, unevenly baked, as if produced by a separate, less privileged class of laborers. The blueprint labels these neighborhoods with symbols once thought to mean craftsmen's quarter. but linguists now argue they translate closer to the cooled ones, a euphemism that speaks volumes. This forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The Indus Valley civilization, often romanticized as a utopia of equality, may have practiced a quiet architectural apartheid. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt or the palaces of Mesopotamia, where oppression was monumental and obvious, Harappa's hierarchies were subtle, etched into the mundane details of daily life. A child growing up in the shaded slums would have known their place before they could speak, not by chains or walls, but by the absence of light on their doorstep. Yet the real mystery lies in what the tablet doesn't show. Faint markings suggest revisions, as if someone tried and failed to rebalance the city's design. Were there protests, reforms, or did the system simply calcify over generations until no one could imagine a fairer alternative? As archaeologists scour other Indus sites for similar blueprints, one thing becomes clear: ancient equality wasn't the absence of hierarchy. It was the constant, fragile struggle against it, fought not in grand declarations but in the quiet geometry of bricks and shadows. And that struggle, it seems, is far older than we ever suspected. The reversible walls of Çatalhöyük weren't just architectural quirks, they were a Neolithic revolution carved into clay. In this sprawling Anatolian settlement, where houses clung together like a single organism, recently decoded blueprints reveal something extraordinary. Entire walls mounted on pivoting stone sockets, allowing rooms to expand or shrink with the seasons. Picture a family in winter, huddled close as rotating panels sealed off unused spaces to trap warmth. Come summer, those same walls would swing open like giant shutters, transforming cramped quarters into airy communal halls. This wasn't just clever engineering. It was a philosophy frozen in mudbrick, proof that the world's first urban dwellers never fully abandoned their nomadic roots. What makes these designs so radical is their defiance of convention. While later civilizations obsessed with permanence, think Egyptian pyramids or Roman aqueducts, Çatalhöyük's builders embraced fluidity. The blueprints show grooves worn smooth by countless rotations, suggesting walls were shifted weekly, even daily. Some partitions feature markings indicating which constellations to align them with: swivel north for harvest season, south for solstice gatherings. But here's the real stroke of genius: the pivots weren't placed randomly. They clustered around central hearths so a single push could redirect heat flow like a prehistoric thermostat. Archaeologists have even found traces of pigments on certain panels, hinting that rotating a wall might reveal hidden murals, turning domestic chores into ritual transformations. So why did this brilliance vanish? The answer might lie in what came after. As agriculture stabilized, permanence became a status symbol. Owning land meant owning walls that didn't move. Later cultures associated adaptability with instability. A proper house was a fortress, its boundaries fixed. There's also the question of scale. Çatalhöyük's tight honeycomb structure allowed walls to pivot without collapsing neighbors' homes, an interdependence impossible in sprawling classical cities. By the time of Babylon, the very idea of reconfigurable space seemed primitive, a relic of rootless ancestors. Yet modern architects are now resurrecting these Neolithic innovations. From Tokyo's sliding wall micro-apartments to disaster shelters with collapsible rooms, the principle is the same: spaces that adapt to need, not tradition. Çatalhöyük's blueprints challenge our deepest assumptions about progress. Maybe those Anatolian farmers weren't just caught between wandering and settling. They'd glimpsed a third way, where home wasn't a place but a rhythm. And buried beneath 9,000 years of dust, their pivoting walls still whisper a question. What if the future of living isn't building better boxes, but remembering how to let them breathe? The legendary Lighthouse of Alexandria wasn't just a towering beacon, it was a marvel of optical engineering so advanced, its secrets still baffle modern scientists. Recently translated Greek manuscripts, hidden for centuries in a monastery's vault, describe something even more extraordinary than the lighthouse itself, a system of telescopic bronze mirrors capable of extending and retracting like the segments of a collapsible spyglass. These weren't static reflectors, they were adjustable lenses, polished to such perfection they could magnify and project the lighthouse's flame far beyond the horizon. Imagine a beam of light cutting through the night, not just guiding ships to port, but reaching distances previously thought impossible for ancient technology. Some accounts claim up to 30 miles. What makes these designs so revolutionary is their precision. The manuscripts detail a series of interlocking mirrors, each one mounted on screw-driven arms that allowed sailors to adjust the angle and focus of the light. During storms, the mirrors could be withdrawn into protective niches, shielded from salt spray and wind. On clear nights, they extended outward in a staggered formation, creating a layered effect that amplified brightness without distorting the beam. Modern experiments with replicas have confirmed the physics behind this. When aligned correctly, the mirrors create a phenomenon called constructive interference, where light waves stack to intensify rather than scatter. The Greeks didn't just understand optics, they hacked them. But here's the real mystery. Where did this knowledge come from? The manuscripts reference older Egyptian texts describing similar devices in temples, used not for navigation but for rituals projecting starlight onto sacred statues at precise moments. Some sketches even show handheld versions labeled "the far-seeing eyes of Horus," suggesting portable telescopes existed centuries before we thought such technology emerged. This raises a haunting possibility. The lighthouse's mirrors might have been the last surviving pieces of a much broader tradition, one that vanished when the library burned. The tragedy isn't just the loss of these inventions, it's how close we came to preserving them. One parchment, charred at the edges but still legible, describes a backup cache of optical blueprints stored in a subterranean vault beneath the lighthouse. Divers exploring the harbor's ruins have found grooves in the seabed that match descriptions of sliding stone doors, but the chamber itself remains elusive. Was it looted, destroyed, or does it still wait, silt-covered, for someone to rediscover the ancient world's most dazzling light show? These telescopic mirrors challenge everything we assume about technological progress. We think of innovation as a straight line, but the truth is messier bursts of brilliance flickering in the dark, some lasting long enough to illuminate the future, others snuffed out before their time. The lighthouse's beam didn't just cut through fog, it pierced the myth of antiquity as a primitive age, revealing flashes of sophistication we're only now learning to see. And somewhere in Alexandria's drowned ruins, other secrets might still gleam, waiting for the right light to bring them back into view. Beneath the volcanic ash of Pompeii, a discovery rewrites our vision of ancient urban life, not in stone or marble, but in pigment. Salvaged scrolls, their edges blackened but their inks miraculously preserved, unveil a city where every building communicated its purpose through color. Walk down any street before the eruption, and you wouldn't need signs to find a bakery, a temple, or a public bath. The walls themselves spoke in hues: ochre for commerce, deep red for sacred spaces, vibrant blues for civic buildings, each shade carefully formulated to fade at a predetermined rate. A wine shop's facade might lighten over 3 years, signaling it was time for refurbishment, while a magistrate's office maintained its rich indigo for decades, broadcasting stability. This wasn't just decoration, it was a functional language painted across the city's skin. The true genius lay in the chemistry. analysis of the surviving pigments reveals mixtures far ahead of their time iron oxides blended with crushed glass to refract sunlight, creating luminous effects that shifted with the hour. Some compounds were engineered to degrade only under specific conditions, like the lime-infused vermilion on bathhouse walls that darkened with humidity, warning patrons when steam rooms needed maintenance. Even more astonishing, the scrolls include recipes for time-release paints, where layers of pigment dissolved at different rates, allowing intricate patterns to emerge as the outer colors faded. Imagine a tavern wall initially appearing solid green, only to reveal hidden geometric motifs as the months passed, a silent countdown to the owner's lease renewal. But the system's brilliance extended beyond practicality. The chromatic code doubled as a democratic tool. In a society where literacy wasn't universal, color became the great equalizer. Anyone, free or enslaved, could read the city's layout. The scrolls even describe how certain shades were reserved for emergency use, like the bright yellow bands painted around intersections prone to cart collisions, or the pulsating red outlines of buildings with earthquake-resistant designs. This wasn't just urban planning, it was social engineering at its most elegant, using light and chemistry to guide behavior without a single written law. Yet the most haunting revelation lies in what the colors concealed. Infrared scans of Pompeii's ruins have uncovered ghost palettes, paint layers that were meant to be revealed years or even generations after the eruption. A temple's seemingly plain white columns, for instance, hid intricate astrological charts scheduled to emerge in the year 79, aligning with a predicted celestial event. It's as if the city's architects were playing a long game with time itself, embedding messages meant to unfold like flowers for future citizens who never got to see them. Today, as modern cities experiment with color-coded bike lanes and mood-enhancing street art, Pompeii's chromatic blueprints offer a masterclass in blending form and function. Those faded pigments whisper a radical idea that beauty and utility aren't opposing forces, but partners in a dance that can shape societies. The ash that froze Pompeii in time didn't just preserve a city, it saved a philosophy, one where every brushstroke was both a practical tool and a work of art, waiting centuries for us to decipher its full meaning. The pyramids of Caral don't just rise from Peru's desert, they move, not in the way you might think, but in something far more extraordinary. Woven rope fragments preserved in the dry coastal air for over 5,000 years reveal a secret most archaeologists missed. These stepped monuments weren't just temples. They were colossal timekeeping devices, their shadows slicing across precisely placed markers to dictate when to plant, harvest, and celebrate. Imagine farmers glancing up at the towering structures, watching as a sliver of darkness touched a notch in the stone, signaling the exact day to sow their crops. This wasn't just architecture, it was agriculture written in sunlight and shadow, a calendar carved into the landscape centuries before the Egyptians aligned their pyramids with the stars. What's revolutionary about Caral's design isn't just its age, it's its simplicity. The ropes, knotted in patterns that mirror the pyramid staircases, served as portable blueprints. Each knot corresponds to a shadow's position at a specific time of year, with thicker cords marking solstices and thinner ones indicating equinoxes. Modern experiments with replicas confirm their accuracy. When sunlight hits the pyramid at a 60-degree angle on the winter solstice, the shadow aligns perfectly with a rope's central knot. But here's the real stroke of genius. The system accounted for Caral's microclimate. The city sat in a fog-prone valley, so the pyramids were spaced to catch light at different elevations. If one was obscured, another could still mark the hour. The mystery isn't just how they built this system, it's how the knowledge traveled. Caral flourished 1,000 years before Egypt's Great Pyramid, yet both cultures developed eerily similar concepts. Were there ancient mariners sharing ideas across oceans, or does this hint at a deeper, universal human instinct to track time through stone? Some researchers point to shared celestial obsessions. Both cultures revered the Pleiades cluster, linking its rise to agricultural cycles. Others argue it's parallel innovation. When survival depends on predicting seasons, great minds arrive at similar solutions, whether beside the Nile or the Soup River. Yet Caral's blueprints hold one last puzzle. The ropes include symbols resembling wave patterns, though the city lies miles from the coast. Could these be nautical maps suggesting the builders traded with seaside cultures, or were they tracking another kind of wave sound? Recent acoustic studies show Caral's pyramids amplify ocean breezes into low hums, turning the entire complex into a giant wind instrument. Perhaps time wasn't just seen here but heard, with melodies marking celestial events. This changes how we see ancient innovation. We assume progress moves in straight lines from primitive to advanced. But Caral's ropes whisper a different story, that brilliance can emerge anywhere in any form. A knotted string might hold as much wisdom as a stone tablet, and a pyramid's shadow can be as precise as any digital clock. The real lesson isn't just how they kept time, it's how they remind us that time itself is layered, and the past still has secrets to cast into the light. These 25 blueprints shatter the myth that ancient civilizations were primitive. They reveal societies that didn't just build structures, they engineered experiences, bending stone and sunlight to their will. Think about it: cities that floated on water, temples that tracked the stars with terrifying precision, even theaters where walls themselves became performers. These weren't accidents, they were the culmination of generations of observation, experimentation, and sheer human brilliance, proof that innovation didn't start with silicon chips or steam engines. It began with curiosity carved into clay and whispered across millennia. What's humbling is how much we've underestimated them. For years, we patted ourselves on the back for discovering concepts like sustainable urban planning or acoustic engineering, only to realize ancient architects had mastered them centuries ago. The Nabateans didn't just survive the desert, they choreographed water like composers, turning barren rock into a symphony of cisterns and channels. The Maya didn't merely chart the stars, they built observatories so precise they could predict eclipses down to the hour. These blueprints force us to confront an uncomfortable truth: progress isn't always linear. Sometimes it loops back on itself, and the past holds solutions we're still struggling to reinvent. But here's the real magic: these discoveries aren't locked in museums. They're alive. Modern engineers study Petra's water systems to combat drought. Urban planners analyze Mohenjo-Daro's grid to design flood-resistant cities. Even NASA has borrowed from Angkor celestial maps to calibrate satellites. The past isn't a graveyard of dead ideas. It's a toolbox waiting for us to reach in and pull out the right wrench for tomorrow's problems. So what's next? With LiDAR scanning and AI-assisted translation, we're decoding more blueprints every year. Who knows what else lies buried? Collapsible bridges in the Andes, sound chambers beneath the Sahara, maybe even entire cities still hidden beneath jungles or ice. The more we find, the clearer it becomes. History isn't a book with fixed chapters. It's a palimpsest, constantly revealing new layers beneath the ones we thought we knew. That's why these blueprints matter. They're not just windows into the past, they're mirrors, showing us what humanity is capable of when we blend imagination with persistence. And if ancient builders could move mountains with nothing but rope and grit, imagine what we might achieve by standing on their shoulders. The next time you walk past a skyscraper or cross a bridge, remember, the future isn't just something we invent. It's something we rediscover, one lost blueprint at a time. Now it's your turn. Which of these ancient marvels left you awestruck? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep unraveling history's greatest puzzles together. Until then, stay curious. The past has plenty more to teach us if we're willing to listen.